I stood in my bathroom on my wedding day, staring at myself in the mirror. 61 years old, getting married for the second time. My dress was simple, elegant cream lace. Sterling had been so excited when I'd agreed to move into his apartment after the ceremony. What he didn't know was that this apartment, this beautiful 3-bedroom on Park Avenue, was actually mine. I'd owned it outright for 15 years, since my first husband Holbrook died. Sterling thought he was generously offering me a home. I let him think that. My best friend Saffron had questioned my decision to keep this secret. Why not just tell him the truth? She'd asked. Something in my gut told me to wait. To see who Sterling really was first. Sterling and I had met at a charity gala 8 months ago. He was charming, attentive, always picking up the check at restaurants. He talked about his successful investment career, his properties, his comfortable retirement. I was a retired art teacher living modestly, or so he thought. The truth was more complicated. Holbrook had been a brilliant architect who'd invested wisely. When he passed, he left me with this apartment, a substantial investment portfolio, and complete financial security. But I'd learned from my first marriage that money changed how people treated you. So when I met Sterling, I played down my assets. Wore simple clothes, suggested inexpensive dates, lived quietly. He seemed to appreciate my humble lifestyle. The proposal came quickly, perhaps too quickly. Sterling insisted we marry within 6 months. At our age, why wait? He'd said. His mother Constance had been less enthusiastic. She was 87, sharp as a knife, and clearly protective of her son. I hope you understand Sterling is a man of means, she'd told me at our first meeting. He doesn't need anyone taking advantage of him. I'd smiled politely and assured her I had my own small pension. That seemed to satisfy her. The wedding was small, just close friends and family at City Hall. Sterling's daughter from his first marriage didn't attend. She's busy with work, he explained, but I caught something off in his tone. After the ceremony, Sterling drove us to the apartment building. My apartment building, though he didn't know that. Welcome home, Mrs. Vance, he said, kissing my cheek. We took the elevator to the 6th floor. As he unlocked the door with the key I'd given him weeks ago, he puffed up with pride. 3 bedrooms, updated kitchen, park views. I bought this place 20 years ago. Best investment I ever made. I nodded, playing along, even though I knew the truth. I'd checked the property records before we got serious. Sterling Vance had never owned this apartment. His name appeared nowhere on the deed. So who was lying, and why? That question had kept me awake for weeks. The apartment looked different with Sterling's belongings mixed in. He'd moved boxes in over the past week, claiming he was making space for his new bride. I watched him organize his clothes in the master bedroom closet, pushing my things to one side. You don't mind sharing the space, do you? He asked. After all, it's my apartment. I'm being generous letting you bring so much. His tone was casual, but something about it felt off. Possessive, like he was establishing ownership not just of the space, but of me. That night, Constance came for dinner. She walked through the apartment like she owned it, running her finger along surfaces, inspecting everything. Sterling always keeps such a lovely home, she said pointedly, looking at me. Over the next few weeks, subtle changes began. Sterling started making decisions without asking me. He replaced my favorite reading chair with a leather recliner. My apartment, my furniture choices, he said when I protested mildly. He threw away kitchen items I'd owned for years, calling them clutter. When I suggested we split the household bills, he laughed. Don't be ridiculous. This is my property. You're living here as my wife, not a tenant. Each time he said, my apartment, I bit my tongue. My lawyer Whitley had advised me to document everything. If something feels wrong, trust that instinct, she'd said. So I started keeping notes. Dates, conversations, changes. Meanwhile, Constance visited constantly, letting herself in with a key Sterling had given her. One afternoon, I overheard Constance and Sterling talking in the kitchen. I'd been napping in the bedroom when their voices woke me. How long until we can refinance this place? Constance asked. The mortgage you took out is costing us a fortune. Mortgage? My blood went cold. This apartment had no mortgage. I owned it free and clear. Mother, keep your voice down, Sterling hissed. Magnolia doesn't know about the loan. As far as she knows, I own this outright. Well, you do own it, Constance said. We made sure of that with the deed transfer. I still think we should sell it and split the money. You don't need a wife complicating things. My heart pounded. Deed transfer? What deed transfer? I stayed silent in the bedroom, barely breathing, listening to them plot. We can't sell yet, Sterling said. If I divorce her too quickly, she might get suspicious and contest things. We need to wait at least a year to make it look legitimate. Divorce? They were already planning to divorce me? Fine, Constance sighed, but I'm tired of pretending to like her. The way she acts like she belongs here, it's ridiculous. This is our property now, Sterling. Your inheritance, as it should be. They moved to the living room, and I couldn't hear anymore. I sat on the bed, my mind racing. They thought they'd stolen my apartment. They'd somehow created fake documents showing Sterling owned it. And they were planning to divorce me and keep everything. That evening, I called Whitley from a coffee shop, using my cell phone. I need you to check something immediately, I said, explaining what I'd overheard. Whitley was silent for a long moment. Magnolia, if they filed fraudulent documents, that's a serious crime. Let me pull the current property records. She called back within an hour. Someone filed a quitclaim deed 3 months ago, supposedly transferring the property from you to Sterling Vance. It's notarized and everything. My hands shook, but I never signed anything. Exactly, Whitley said grimly. This is forgery and fraud. We need to act carefully. If we tip them off too soon, they might destroy evidence or flee. We made a plan. I would act normal, collect evidence, and wait. Living with Sterling after learning the truth was torture. Every time he called it his apartment, I wanted to scream. But I played the dutiful wife, smiling and cooking and pretending everything was fine. I searched the apartment when Sterling was out, looking for documents. In his office closet, hidden in a box marked tax records, I found everything. The forged quitclaim deed with my signature expertly copied. Documents from a mortgage company showing Sterling had borrowed $400,000 against his property. Email printouts between Sterling and Constance discussing how to handle Magnolia after the apartment was secured. They'd planned this for months, probably even before proposing to me. The marriage was just a cover to make the theft look legitimate. I photographed every document with my phone, sent them to Whitley, and carefully replaced everything exactly as I'd found it. My lawyer was furious when she saw the evidence. This is organized fraud. They targeted you specifically because they knew you owned this property. Sterling probably researched you before even approaching you at that gala. That made horrible sense. Our chance meeting had probably been planned. He'd courted me, proposed quickly, and rushed the marriage. All to steal my home. What do we do now? I asked. Whitley's voice was hard. We build a case, and then we destroy them legally. She contacted a detective who specialized in fraud cases. Together, they uncovered more. Sterling had done this before, to 2 other women. Sterling's pattern was consistent. He targeted older widows with property, married them quickly, created fraudulent ownership documents, then divorced them before they realized what happened. His previous victims had been too embarrassed or confused to fight back. One woman lost her house. Another lost a valuable beach condo. Both times, Sterling walked away with hundreds of thousands of dollars. Constance had helped him every time, playing the concerned mother while actually being his accomplice. They were professional con artists. Why hasn't anyone stopped them before? I asked the detective. The victims didn't have proof, he explained. By the time they realized what happened, Sterling had legitimate-looking documents. Fighting it would have cost more than the property was worth. They gave up, but I wasn't giving up. This was my home. Two months into the marriage, Sterling started talking about selling. The market is hot right now, he said casually over breakfast. I'm thinking of putting this apartment on the market. We could downsize, move somewhere cheaper. My stomach twisted. This was it, the beginning of their endgame. But this is your home, I said carefully. Where would we go? Sterling waved dismissively. I have other properties. We'd be fine. Besides, I need to liquidate some assets. Liquidate. He meant steal my money and run. That evening, Constance came over with a real estate agent. Just getting preliminary estimates, she said, smiling at me like a snake. The agent walked through, taking notes, suggesting updates. We could easily get $2 million for this place, she told Sterling. I excused myself and called Whitley. They're moving faster than we thought. We need to act now. My lawyer agreed. The next morning, while Sterling was supposedly at a business meeting, detectives and police officers arrived at the apartment with a warrant. I let them in, my heart pounding. They searched Sterling's office, confiscating documents, computers, files. When Sterling returned home and saw the police, his face went white. "What's going on?" he demanded. A detective stepped forward. "Sterling Vance, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit grand larceny." Sterling's eyes shot to me. For the first time, he looked at me with something other than fake affection. He looked at me with pure hatred. "You," he hissed. "Yes, me," I said calmly. "The actual owner of this apartment. The woman whose signature you forged. The person you tried to steal from." Sterling's mouth opened and closed. Behind him, Constance had just entered the apartment. When she saw the police, she tried to leave. "Constance Vance," another detective called. "You're also under arrest." They read her rights while she protested loudly about her age and her health and how this was all a misunderstanding. But the evidence was overwhelming. They had the forged documents, the mortgage fraud, the emails planning everything. Both Sterling and Constance were taken away in handcuffs. I stood in my apartment, my real apartment, and finally breathed freely. My phone rang. It was Saffron. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm perfect," I said. The legal proceedings moved quickly with so much evidence. Sterling and Constance both tried to claim they'd made honest mistakes, but the emails proved premeditation. The detective found evidence of their previous victims, and those women came forward to testify. Sterling had stolen over $1 million from vulnerable women over the past decade. The judge was not sympathetic. Sterling received 8 years in prison for fraud and forgery. Constance, at 87, received 5 years with possibility of parole after 2. The mortgage Sterling had fraudulently taken out against my property was voided. Every penny he'd borrowed was traced and recovered from various accounts where he'd hidden it. I got my home back officially, though I'd never really lost it. More importantly, I got justice. The story made local news. Elderly widow catches husband in property fraud scheme. I hated being called elderly, but at least the truth was out. Several other women contacted me through my lawyer, women who dated Sterling but escaped before marriage. One woman said he'd pressured her to add him to her house deed. She'd refused and he'd disappeared. "You probably saved me," she said. That felt good, knowing that speaking up protected others. My friend Saffron came over the day after the arrests. "I can't believe you lived with him for 2 months knowing what he was," she said. "How did you stay calm?" I poured us wine. "Because I knew the truth. I owned this apartment. He never did. Every time he called it his, I knew he was lying." Rebuilding my life after that was strange. The apartment felt different, cleaner somehow, now that Sterling's presence was gone. I changed the locks, had the place deep cleaned, and slowly reclaimed every space. I put my reading chair back, arranged my kitchen exactly how I wanted, hung artwork Sterling had taken down. This was my home again, truly mine. I also changed how I approached relationships. No more hiding who I was or what I had. If someone couldn't love me knowing the truth about my finances, they weren't worth my time. Saffron introduced me to her widowed brother, Dashwood. We started having coffee. When he asked where I lived, I told him proudly about my apartment. "I own it outright," I said. "It's been mine for 15 years. He smiled. "Good for you." The money recovered from Sterling's accounts was distributed to his victims. I received the $400,000 he'd borrowed against my property, plus damages. I didn't need the money, but it felt like justice. I donated most of it to organizations helping elder fraud victims. One evening, I got a letter forwarded through my lawyer. It was from Constance, writing from prison. She claimed she'd been manipulated by her son, that she was sorry, that she was just trying to protect his financial future. I read it once and threw it away. Some apologies are too little, too late. Sterling never apologized at all. According to reports, he was still maintaining in prison that he'd done nothing wrong, that I'd somehow framed him. Denial ran deep in that man. 2 years have passed now. I'm 63, single, and honestly happier than I've been in years. I learned important lessons from my short marriage to Sterling. Trust your instincts. Protect yourself legally. Never be ashamed of what you've earned or built. And most importantly, document everything when something feels wrong. Those instincts that told me not to tell Sterling about owning the apartment? They saved me from losing everything. If I'd told him the truth before marriage, He might have changed tactics, maybe convinced me to add him to the deed as a romantic gesture. By staying quiet and watching, I caught him in the act. Sometimes the best protection is keeping your cards close until you know who you're really playing with. And I won that hand completely. Financial abuse and fraud targeting older adults is a growing epidemic. Con artists specifically target widows and widowers because they're vulnerable and often have assets worth stealing. If someone rushes you into marriage, pressures you to change property titles, or tries to control your financial information, those are red flags. Protect yourself by keeping your finances private until you truly know someone. Verify everything. If a new partner claims to own property, check public records. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And never, ever feel guilty for protecting what you've worked for. Your assets are yours. Marriage should be about love and partnership, not someone trying to steal your security. Elder financial fraud costs victims $3 billion annually. Verify property ownership through public records. Never sign documents without independent legal review. Report suspected fraud to Adult Protective Services, 1-800-677-1116 or local authorities. Before you go, I need to know something. What hit you the hardest? The betrayal? The moment everything fell apart? The twist you never saw coming? Drop it in the comments right now. And tell me what you want to see next. Medical fraud? Family secrets? Financial crimes? Hidden identities? Your ideas become our next stories. If this story kept you glued to the screen, hit that like button. If you want more shocking true stories that expose the truth, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Thanks for letting me share this story with you. The next one drops soon, and it's going to shake you even harder. See you there.